Yeah, and of course, you can run the numbers, you can look at the heroes. I think picking it versus Abaddon might be the beginning of what we've seen a lot of teams pick up versus the Kunkka to try and counter it out, especially when the Kunkka is paired with the Mirana. But okay, Weaver, classic. I mean, it's the core Weaver. And we've seen what he's been able to do on this style of four heroes. Again, highlighting the Mirana, the Snapfire, the fours that just get a little bit more gold than anyone else. And this is really going to pose a difficult problem for the Chen, specifically on Thunder Awaken, where there's always going to be this Weaver nagging in your side, looking for you in the backline, trying to force spells out of you early. And I still think that even though the Kunkka, like you said, hasn't been that successful, at least you're playing Kunkka versus Chen, right? You've got some creeps
Fair.
to play off. Maybe the Tidebringer is going to feel a little bit more consistent. But I think that's where Hokori have kind of struggled with the Kunkka in finding balance in their lineup, where it's always paired up with maybe too hard of a farmer, or maybe Yuma doesn't have enough damage coming from their offlaner, so the plays aren't being made as seamlessly. And I think that's where Hokori, they could make a 180 here, but I do think that they do need to solve their issue, which has been just having a very mismatched core duo, and then they find themselves stepping on their toes a little bit, in all honesty. Because Yuma, as we always get to talk about with his Kunkka, he likes getting armlet and he likes getting boots of travel and he likes doing his thing. He's a very greedy player
Whoa.
inherently, but okay, Tusk. Well, I think that's Sacred Abaddon then, almost assuredly, but this is very, very different from Thunder Awaken.
Yeah, so Abba at the 3, you run Tuskchen as your support duo. That would put Dark Mago on a mid-Mars, which is always
Hmm.
a little bit exciting here. And now if you're Hokori, you have to wonder a little bit. I mentioned earlier, Analog has yet to play the Kunkka since joining this team, and now there's going to be a Mars in the middle lane that you would have to deal with. So that maybe puts more incentive for them to shift that into Yuma's hands. But then, as you were mentioning, you run into the problem. Yuma Kunkka likes to play maybe a little bit more greedy, a little bit more farm oriented with the bots pickup. So you need to make sure that your mid laner is not someone who's going to take away too much farm from that duo and sort of hamstring both of them.
Yeah, and really like the Medusa band from Hokori. I think Thunder Awaken, they need someone who does it all, especially for Pakaz here. They don't really have the best Roche right now. They don't have a way onto these towers aside from just flooding the Chen creeps. And honestly, with their atypical lane setup, I want to say they're even going to struggle kind of making that seamless collapse we usually see from Thunder Awaken, where their offlaner shows up mid and then the mid tier one is just under too much pressure. Thunder Awaken always get that mid tier one between the 10 to 15-minute mark. And there's just nothing that teams have really found to do versus it, except for maybe stick a Tide Hunter in between them. But even that has fallen before. I think this is where maybe if you're Hikori, Beastmaster's going to be taking the bottom lane, Gardeck's going to be taking the top lane on the Train Protector. You can't really pick a TA or anything among those lines for your Kunkka, and they're actually saying that
Mm,
is going to be the Kunkka mid. They're banning out Yuma's heroes specifically, and there is still a Monkey King in the pool if we want to see the Yuma Monkey King back again.
that's right.
Don't know if it's going to necessarily feel the greatest versus Abaddon, just because there's a lot of magic damage, there's a lot of physical damage there, and I think any melee hero is going to struggle versus the Curse of Avernus. But in terms of other Yuma heroes, we could see them go for the TA, and then Analog is the one that has to peel back. But no, it's going to be the Tiny.
Okay.
Okay, snuck through the draft.
Not a lot of attention paid to it, which to a certain extent I guess makes sense. We're seeing a weird dichotomy to right of some teams that are
Hmm.
wholeheartedly embracing the tiny, other teams just kind of refuse to touch him. So Hokori, obviously in the former group rather than the latter, we'll see how this tiny goes. But now on the Thunder Awaken side, um, they need themselves a Pakaz hero. As you mentioned, that Medusa band was pretty fantastic, but the pool has not been massively narrowed at this point. Still seems like there's some good options in the field.
Yeah, and honestly, I think the TA is the easiest one for me. They're gonna want to counter out this troll as or the Beastmaster as well with this pickup. Just try to give him a really bad lane, as in the past we've seen Beastmasters have just horrible starts. Uh, Besides that hero that I can think of off the top of my head, the I want to say the Ursa's still around that they could maybe pick up, but I think that struggles with the creep maybe a little bit too much. Uh, Honestly, besides from the TA, they would have loved Troll, honestly. That would have been a really nice pick, and there still is maybe the Naga Siren, but, as we've seen, some teams really hate it, some teams really love it because did play it before, but no,
Ah,
it's gonna be the simple choice, just gonna be the CK, which is an interesting matchup versus the Tiny. Of course, Tiny has a lot of damage, and if you ever get that Silver Edge on top of the CK, a CK can actually die surprisingly quickly, but we'll have to see. The rest of Thunder Awaken's lineup, though, it's a lot of heal, it's a lot of sustain. Everyone is very durable. To that extent, I think Hokori, they need to be really clean with these kills. If anyone gets away, they have a very simple reset.
mm. They're very durable, and taking maybe a little bit of a page out of the Four Zoomers book with the Abba and the Chen, you're going to have a little bit of extra healing on top of it that the Hokori lineup doesn't quite have. You're working with a Treant Protector, and that's kind of it unless this Weaver picks up an Ags. But ET, we've seen just how effective the Treant can be with that sort of new emphasis on the living armor coming out. Not just heroes, but those towers as well become so durable. So maybe Thunder Awaken can be sort of held at arm's length for that little bit longer.
Yeah, and they are going to need damage. Damage, especially from Analog here, coming in from his Tidebringer. If we see a fast BKB, if we see a fast AC, I could see a Thunder Awaken struggling because they really have one true core here. Unless Dark Mago just spirals out of control and is just getting kills left and right, Mars slows down. Mars has a little bit of a lull, especially in the mid game where his spells start to do less damage, BKBs start to get built up, and then the plays get even more difficult. And that's where you're not going to have backup coming in from Sacred. I think this is one of those games where Thunder Awaken have an incredibly strong 10 minutes. And then after that, it's Hokori's time to shine. Hokori have their ultimates. Hokori supports can make plays. But until that point, I think dealing with Thunder Awaken's pressure is going to be paramount for Hokori actually not getting off to a bad start here. As we've seen Thunder Awaken put all of their enemies at that 2 to 3k gold deficit 10 minutes into the game. I think if Hokori can avoid that, things are looking up.
Yeah, weather that early storm, see where that gets you. That is how they won their 2 games in the group stage. They fell behind, and then they came back exactly because Thunder Awaken sort of dropped off and gave them those opportunities. So, obviously, if you're Hokori, you would love to just take control of the game early and maintain that control throughout, but, well, you know, 8 other teams have been trying that to this point in the event, and very few of them have been successful. So, let's see if they can bide their time and wait for their moment, as we are going to be getting into this match. Do want to give you a reminder, folks, this is an upper bracket matchup, so we're not saying goodbye to any teams today. Loser drops down to the lower bracket and will live to see another day. And in fact, I do believe they'd just be playing tomorrow afternoon as well, but you don't want to drop in the lower bracket. It is it's not always a fun place, as some of the squads yesterday found out the hard way. So fight for the top, get to that upper bracket final, one step away from the grand final. Certainly sounds nice for both of these squads.
No, definitely does, but that's also where I think Thunder Awaken might have the advantage here. Just played a lot more of those long format games. They've played a few series in their time, and I think that's where the org feels like an org, you know, where they have that experience to fall back on. They have the tricks up their sleeve, and that's where the format going from best of twos to best of threes surely matters. It's where the bands become way more selective. It's where you need to be more concerned with what your opponents play, maybe more so than how the meta is actually shaping up here. Let's go D word already from Hokori. But you have to be concerned if you're Hokori, just being, I want to say the underdog punching up, because Thunder Awaken really haven't skipped a beat.
Yeah, and I mean, yesterday we had our Cryptic and Neff sort of even asking in their post-game interviews, you know, some of the other teams having to acknowledge that Thunder Awaken are sort of playing at such a incredibly high level right now. So they are very clearly the team to beat. I don't think anybody out there is really sort of deluding themselves on that front. Doesn't mean that they don't think they can beat them, but Thunder Awaken have very much set the bar high here to this point. But well, it's enough blowing smoke here for Thunder Awaken. We'll get to the actual game, starting with a little bit of a dance here in the Southside Jungle. Gardic and Matthew trading last hits, or right clicks rather, excuse me. But for Matthew, that's a Treant Protector. You don't really win that fight.
Nah, he has to walk away. He has to join up with Sacred, and we'll have to see how the Sacred lane actually goes. Again, they've run this lane before, but I think versus 2 strength tiers, it could be a little bit of a struggle, but this is also something Matthew likes to do. Last time he played Tusk, didn't get tag team until level 3. He's really kind of biding his time here, and it makes a little bit of sense just because it does do just a little bit more damage at those early levels, but I feel like we're going to see a second point in tag team just at level 2. Maybe you can get a kill on these super low armor heroes.
Yeah,
And then, well, Snowball Sacred.
especially if we see a point up in the Curse of Avernus, then you really have your sort of in there. So this is it's a little bit strange because I don't know if too many other position 4 players are doing this. Of course, not too many other position 4 players are highly emphasizing the Tusk right now, but there he goes again. There's going to be the shard. Sacred will make his way over. He's not quite level 2 yet, and well, that's a bit of a problem because now Matthew, he's got to run. He's going to skill up the snowball just so he can sort of get his out. But Yuma is trying to set up. Does he have anything, though? No. Would have been an opportunity there, but the Avalanche isn't available. He doesn't have a point in tosses up top. The Olakor able to win a very close fight against Pakaz. He is on about 30 or 40 HP when he gets away, but that's actually pretty big. You talked about the Olakor on this Weaver ET in the draft just being so annoying, but there's a difference between annoying and a level 2 kill onto the opposing carry, and now Panda's got to be a little careful as well. Ooh, living life on the edge there on the Weaver.
Yeah, and this is without really playing up on these waves at all, but yeah, because he gets his revenge there. That's pretty funny, but I can't imagine that he's actually winning these trades because there's no blocking. The small camp is there, the large camp is there. They haven't really had time to mess with the Chen's gameplay, and sure, it's not having that big of an effect just yet, but it's still very surprising to me. At the very least, Vitaly has gotten all of these creeps by himself, though, so he's going to be quite happy with that.
And yeah, the solid start for the Beastmaster is going to be kind of important for Hokori. They don't need it. We've seen Beastmasters in the past recover quite nicely from rough lanes, but if you're Hokori, especially in this matchup, you want to limit the number of lanes that have to be playing from behind as much as really possible. So nice for Vitaly to be able to make something happen there. The Olakor, meanwhile, you saw him hesitating for just a moment as Panda's courier walked in. He was sorely tempted to go for it, but I think at this point he realizes the sentry coverage has been sort of on point, well, through the first couple of minutes, so trying to play it safe, but still roaming just in case. You see the Chen's creep, or courier actually has to stay underneath the tower, and the Olakor, you might just snipe it out anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, that's rough, and it's also the CK. He's having to be very conscious about where he puts his own courier. Meanwhile, Vitaly just pulls the creep wave, and Vitaly's actually going for the Wild Axe. We've seen him do this before, and they did pick Beastmaster into Chen, which is interesting to say the least, but we'll have to see how he builds up going forward. Of course, he can't really afford to get the boar because Panda snipes it out, but is Panda in a little bit of trouble here? Yeah, I think he's just dead.
Yeah, he's going to get taken down. The Olakor is able to find the kill. Vitaly, though, might get traded out if Pakaz can get a little more damage. He is able to make that happen, the 1-for-1. Gonna go Thunder Awaken's way as Pakaz now has 2 kills on the board.
Yep, got the 2-second. Don't think he gets it if he doesn't have enough time to attack move there, but that's a very clean kill.
Nicely done. Meanwhile, had the camera mid for just a moment. Matthew had rotated all the way around, but opted not to go in onto Analog. Still would be a very hard kill in the early stages of this game, so Matthew does end up making his way back mid, but this is always something you have to be careful about. Well, with Matthew in general, but the Tusk in particular, that roaming potential, especially since he has points up in everything at this stage, means that he is going to be able to make those moves, and, well, you can sort of spear stun your way maybe into the shards to stack up those stuns, and that would not be good for Analog. But right now, Gardic is the one who needs a little bit of help. He is under attack. Snowball's going to come through. They get the silence from the curse, and Gardic is going to be taken down. Yuma, I mean, he was hacking away with that tree ET, but there's only so much you can do to help.
Yeah, and honestly, I like the decision there to not use all of his mana, because he's got a few more tree grabs now. He gets to stay in the lane a little bit longer, especially once Gardic brings back a few supplies. Unfortunately, just lost his courier there. Yeah, well, that kind of sucks, but, you know, you've got the tree anti-peeping from the well, though, so he should be fine in that regard, but that's also where, with the new Treant Protector, if Thunder Awaken can force out that living armor onto a target and it ends up on Yuma 9 times out of 10, well, they get to switch that target pretty much immediately, and then turning onto the Treant Protector is so easy, especially because he didn't go for the boots first build that sometimes Gardic does do, but Nice kind of scout out here on Matthew, and actually he's
Oh,
going for the wards.
okay.
Ooh.
Gonna be able to get it. Meanwhile, in the river, Panda just got caught by the X. There's gonna be the Ghost Ship connection. Got the damage for the kill. Dark Mago tried, but he wasn't willing to commit the arena. Panda does go down here. We'll see if there's anything further. Analog is kind of pushing a little bit forward, but he already used his combo to take down the Chen, so there's really not a whole lot to be done. But hey, he gets the kill. He has the regen rune. He is definitely in a position of strength now in this lane. With Dark Mago, you see, just kind of having to stay back a little bit, showing respect to the Kunkka.
Yeah. And yet again, Theliacor also just gets some snipes out on the couriers. It's just not a good day to be a courier. But yeah, Dark Mago is kind of getting the matchup taken really to him. He's not really able to lane right now. They would love a kill onto Analog, but that's where they would need to bring the entire bottom lane to have enough damage to actually take down that Kunkka. He's just a little bit too strong, and Dark Mago's trying to win by just trading out damage with the spear, but that's where Kunkka is just so disgustingly good at making those trades for free with the Tidebringer. But yeah, bottom, huge dive, but they gotta go back.
Ardix TP in will certainly help out, and yeah, there's... Oh, hold up. We might not be done. Analog TP'd in. He doesn't have an X, though. This is going to get a little awkward. He just has to free fire the torrent. Doesn't really connect. That is very strange. I think he anticipated that that was going to be a full dive, and that he would be in position to punish it, but TP in without the X, you can't really connect with the Ghost Ship, and now... Well, this is a little bit awkward for Analog. Good news is that Dark Mago took a trip back to base, so at least in lane you're not going to miss out on time, but that is your TP now being used, and didn't really get much for it.
Yeah, and really, I think that's a pretty tight play from Thunder Awaken, and I also think that Dark Mago's trying to make a smoke up top, but they actually pinged the mid wave when they saw it wasn't getting pushed out from the Kunkka, so they know the side lanes are in danger whenever he's not pushing, and now Dark Mago finds his way into Vitali. That's a really pretty play from him. They're going to have to work for it a little bit, but they're going to take that every day of the week.
I think the best part about that play as well, Dark Mago got the vision. Panda had one of the shard golems, the smaller ones, that threw out a stun just before they sort of threw down that arena as well to make sure the Beastmaster didn't have anything up his sleeve to get himself out. So it is a nice play from Dark Mago. Good reaction times from your Chen as well, and Thunder Awaken are doing quite nicely. And now this CK, I mean, you take a look at him, he's top of the net worth right now. That first death in the lane was a little concerning, but the recovery has been fantastic to this point.
No, he's doing a really good job, and not just that, Panda Boo being Chen, of course he can jungle, so because he's level 8, he has gotten everything in the wave, and we always talk about how CKs, they don't really want to show up to the fight until they hit that level 12 mark. They have 2 illusions to play with, and because is really undisturbed in this game. Also goes back to Vitali having to go for the Whirling Axe build, just isn't able to really put that much tower here, and I do like that they finally rotate Analog, especially with the DD rune. Thunder Awaken don't really have what it takes to defend the tower after the arena got spent, but it's still a very nice setup for Thunder Awaken's early lanes, but they're not running away with it right now, which is an important distinction to make for Hokori.
Yeah, they're doing very well, but I wouldn't necessarily say that they've won out the first 10 minutes just yet, although we mentioned coming into the game, one of the sort of key pieces for them would be to weather that storm and sort of survive maybe the early aggression from their opponents. So at this point, drawing the lanes is a little bit of a win just in and of itself, but now they're looking for something a bit more definitive as they do spot out Matthew. Matthew's going to get hit up by the toss. Can they keep him alive? Yes, they can. Now the arena from Dark Mago is going to connect. They get the Spear Stun onto Analog. Big kill onto Kunkka if they can get it, but they don't really have the damage right now. Without Because, this is just a very slow and ugly fight, and at this point, Thunder Awaken may very well lose it. Panda's been taken down. Spear Stun comes through again. Still not enough follow-up, though. And now Sacred's starting to drop a little bit low. The X is going to pull him in. He's stuck inside the Nature's Grasp. The Hokori now pushing forward with the Shikuchi, and Sacred should be going down. 1 or 2 more hits will do him in. As Hokori find 2 kills there. Dark Mago's at least able to TP himself away and retreat, but they just don't have anything, ET, and this is maybe one of the problems with your offlane ABBA. He just doesn't contribute damage.
No, he's really good on the tower. He's really great for getting those objectives, kind of push in a more expedient fashion. But that's where Dark Mago is really on his lonesome until Picard shows up to that fight. And you see what the damage is good when he hits the Spear Rebuke. He would have surely killed Gardic if he had focused all of his attention on him. But it's where you are playing versus strength heroes. You are playing versus these heroes that are very tanky. And it's again the same story where you let them walk away, especially with Gardic on this Train Protector with that extra armor. It's a name of the game is who can actually tank through these spells, because once it's spent, it's very clear who's going to win the fight that follows.
Yeah, I mean, really, after the arena sort of goes down and doesn't net them a kill, you kind of get the feeling that Thunder Awaken just needed to cut their losses. So, as you said, it's going to become very apparent very quickly, unless something changes pretty soon. Sacred, well, trying to get damage on this tower, but there's that living armor again, and now Vitali's going to come in. Doesn't want to commit the roar just yet, and may not have to. His Analog going to be able to get off the X. No, he's not. Matthew's able to dodge it with the snowball, but there's still 3 heroes coming right at him, and the roar is still being held. Now they'll commit it just to make sure they get the kill, but there's going to be that aphotic shield immediately removing it. Matthew's still alive. Hand of God now even coming in. They are diving for this, but they're not going to get it. Now they just got to back off because Panda is actually coming to the fight. He's bringing friends in the form of those neutrals, and that, well, I don't know. If you're Vitali, use it early or don't use it at all. By that point, it's too late. The shield immediately removes that, and you have a short walk back to the tower rather than a long one.
Yeah, and I think that's where this is Hokori's one time to make their mistake, because the next time they make that overextension, they use everything and they don't get the kill, and that's where Thunder Awaken are just as pesky when it comes to finishing off these kills. There's going to be a Mars Arena. There's going to be a Blink Dagger on Dark Mago, and I think that's where they can't afford another overextension like that. That's their freebie. That's the time where, okay, sure, we don't get punished, but if they're not too careful, I could see that situation play out where they get 3 or 4-man arena, they don't have spells, and again, that's the name of the game. Whoever uses their spells first and doesn't get anything for it loses, and I think that's where Hokori still need to be very careful. They need to play just as tight a game as Thunder Awaken really do.
And you're starting to run out of time where you can realistically bank on Pakaz not being in those fights. The levels are starting to get up. I think he just finished the Echo. Yes, he did. So he's got an Echo Saber and an Armlet. He is going to get really right in the middle of that and start dishing out some heavy damage. So if you're Hokori, like you said, execution's got to tighten up here. Can't afford any misses in the near future. Otherwise, well, Thunder Awaken may have been short on damage before, but if you have a built-up CK in the middle of it, that's not going to be the case much longer.
Yeah, and in addition to that, for only maybe 100 gold off this Dark Mago Blink, then Thunder Awaken are going to look to get way more aggressive on you. Look for one of those free arenas where they just get Vitali in the midst of everything, and that's also why we see Analog not playing around at all. Just no Armlet, no bad business, just trying to get a BKB, because that is going to be the name of the game. If Thunder Awaken start to take that map away from Hokori, we're going to need to see BKBs on cores to see them actually be able to throw together a team fight. I do like that Yuma's going for the build-up, though. That is how he wins this matchup. If he gets that Silver Edge, then suddenly the CK can't show. It'll be a question of which carry is forced to show first in the engagement, and I think the CK is going to make his presence known way quicker. And that's where if Yuma hits him with the Silver Edge hit, well, suddenly you don't have that Chaos Strike. You're not very durable, and you can very easily die to the Tiny.
Not going to have that usual just nearly unbreakable tankiness on the CK if you do get hit up by that. So, well, Yuma's going to look to finish it. Of course, that does mean Yuma may not be participating in as many of these fights moving forward, much like the CK on the other side. So, in the end, it's going to be relatively even as they are hunting for Gardic. Can't quite get onto him, but they know he's there. So, Matthew's just going to keep on looking, and in the meantime, everyone else going to lay hits into that tower, because this tier 1, the living armor is really helping, but if they just keep on it, eventually they're going to take it. The glyph even being deployed now by Hokori, just trying to keep this slowed down, but they need TPs. They are going to get one. I think Dark Mago should see it. No, the tree's actually going to block it, so Analog is here. Question is, can they actually get anything? Panda's going to get pulled back in by the X, and it looks like he is just going to be sacrificed. Dark Mago would rather just take the tower and get out.
Ooh, and does he get the boys out, or he's going to be losing some creeps here? Oof. Nope. Lost a few for certain in Dark Mago. Does he hit it? Nice. This is dead. Oof.
That is a nice little play there, two-man game to get the kill, and now if you're Hokori, you gotta be careful. The tower was just taken. You don't have that fallback point. Gardic, he's got to use the overgrowth. Sacred doesn't care, though. He just pops the aphotic and keeps going. They are going to be able to spot out that tree. There's going to be your spear stun coming in once again. Dark Mago's able to make it a twofer. Meanwhile, over in the middle lane, Yuma and Vitali were at least able to take a tower.
Yeah, Hokori are doing a really fine job of splitting Thunder Awaken's focus here, really striking at two places pretty much all the time. But yeah, have they spread themselves out a little bit too thin here? He needs more damage though.
Did he just what?
That's a cool interaction.
I don't know if Dark Mega would agree with that assessment. Cool is not the word he would use. He'll still get the kill, but I did not know that you could do that. That might be some funkiness with the ramp, but either way, the fight continues. Analog has to pop that newly acquired BKB, uses the Ghost Ship defensively to try and get himself out here, but under Awaken, they want to continue to chase. They've got eyes on the two supports. They'll pull Gardic back in for the kill. The Olakor was able to Shikuchi away, but now, if you're Thunder Awaken, creep wave coming in, maybe you turn your attention to another objective if they can get that tier 1 mid.
Yeah, and they need to split up a little bit. They use BKB on Analog, so yeah, your Kunkka's not even here. So this is going to be a really fast tower push. At the very least, I don't think they can swing for Roche. I think it might be a little bit too early for them, but that's where once you have these strength heroes hitting with the Curse of Avernus, buildings actually just start to fly. And I mean, if they want to, they could go into Roche and force their opponents to come, but Hokori have to actually come here, and I think this might be a play that catches them off guard. I'd love to see the scan, but
they're too far away.
This might be too late. Yeah.
All the way in the south side jungle, they're grouping up now for the smoke, but it's already too late. Roche is taken. Thunder Awaken. Well, you were saying they might not have the time, but unfortunately, Hokori give them the time by backing off so much, and now look at Sacred. He's just going to run forward. I've got my ult. Do what you want. He's trying to bait them in. There's going to be that ult popped. Analog's going to get him up with the X, but really, where do they want to go right now? I think Matthew just attempted to snowball onto the Olakor, but Dark Mago is actually going to make the move to get the spear stun down. Sacred does end up dying back in the middle lane, but they're looking to trade him out. The Olakor, though, able to disjoint with the Shikuchi, but now he's trapped in the pit. And Pikaz will take him down, but that buys time. Yuma rejoins. They want to go in. They've got the Roar down, trying to keep the Tusk out of the fight for as long as they can. And they did manage to bring him down, so they picked off the two sort of defensive heroes in this situation. They've got Panda here as well on the opposite side of the pit, and Thunder Awaken, I don't really know what happened there. They were grouped up like they wanted to fight. They do get the Olakor, but then after that, everybody just kind of scatters to the winds.
Yeah, it's where they really need Sacred to actually stay alive in a lot of these engagements. It's where the X mark is very obnoxious to deal with, and they're still kind of looking for Dark Mago here. They saw him before, and Pikaz kind of left him a little bit early. They'll finally meet up, and Sacred TPing in should mean that, yeah, Hokori have to back off after seeing that. But still, that was a really nice trade. They did a really good job of dealing with Pikaz's illusions very early on in that fight, and well, now I think we need Thunder Awaken, bring the game back with a little bit of focus here, get an objective underneath pressure again. And yeah, look at all these heroes in such weird areas, but well, Yuma's got a freebie.
The Olakor there just to sort of help scout that one out, but now in the river, they're going to try and go on to Pikaz. This is not an easy kill. He does have the Aegis. How much can they do? Matthew's coming in now as well. Walrus Punch will be applied, so the Tiny does get knocked up in the air here, but he is very tanky on this Tiny. He's not going to go down easily, but they will eventually get him. The Overgrowth comes through, but not really in time, because now he'll lose his first life, but here comes Dark Mago into the fight. Gets the arena down. They'll take down Gardic first. The Olakor next up on the chopping block. Do they have the detection to deal with him, though? No, they do not, so just gonna have to let the Weaver go, but they got what they wanted. They do have to sacrifice Panda and the Aegis, but they kill onto Yuma's Tiny there. And now maybe more. Vitali, he gets spotted out. The Snowball's gonna come through. Can Matthew get the punch? Not before the Roar. That is a big play, but actually Matthew, he's not dead yet because saves the day. That's some long range on the Reality Rift, but it does pull that Beastmaster away, so Matthew lives and they get that kill. And well, me too, you said Thunder Awaken needed to try and sort of reestablish that control, that rhythm. That fight is certainly going to go a long way towards that goal.
No, and it looked fairly messy for Thunder Awaken to actually deal with it. It felt like they were a little bit maybe too set up to take that fight, but I think that's where, unfortunately, Analog, he didn't find a good time to use his BKB. Both carries are just ending up in this brawl where it's all physical damage, and until he gets this AC, he can't really do anything.
It's a Manta on Pikaz, okay. Even more
yeah,
illusions.
he is super farmed, and I'll be honest, I don't know if I like the Manta just because in the Avalanche, your illusions are still getting sunned up. They're still getting cleared out pretty fast. This has, effectively doubled his damage when it comes to actually using his Phantasm with the Rift. But we'll have to see if Bakaz would have favored maybe having an armor item of his own instead. I'd love to see him get the AC, but maybe he's saying that after this BKB on the Mars that Dark Mago builds it up for him instead. But we'll have to see. Sacred also went for a Crimson Guard, interestingly enough, which is old alien item for the majority of us Dota players just because it doesn't really have an active that people really like anymore. But hey, got a little bit of a buff in 731 and you're playing versus Beastmaster summons, right? So it could work, but I'm still a little bit concerned for how maybe some of the gold's getting spent right now. But that's also where Gardeck, he's in a very dangerous spot and they see him.
They see him the whole time.
Well,
there's going to be
the Harpy.
Initiation in from Matthew. That's unfortunate. Yeah, just you don't know until it's too late. Has that active to get the flying, so you're able to get the vision down. That's a big pick because it could lead them into the tower. And on the other side, Dark Mago, yeah, he is alone. They will take advantage of that, but Kaz is coming in. He wants his revenge. He's got Dust, but nice play from Theolacor using the time lapse to dodge it. He should actually be able to get himself out of here because doesn't want to go any further, but that means the push on this tower, yep, it's done. It's gone. They lost all the damage. Matthew's taken out. Sacred is now going to have to run away, but the X going to pull him back in. I mean, Sacred's got his ult, but it's not really going to do him much good unless he can actually physically get away, and Yuma's not going to let him go. There's the toss into the Avalanche. Does heal Sacred back up, but 4v1, they're going to be able to break through him a second time.
Yeah.
Really overgrowth. I don't know if they needed that, but yeah, they find the kill. 3 pickoffs across the map. They save their tier 1 tower, and if you're Thunder Awaken, that just feels a little bit too greedy for them to split up, but still also try to keep that push on the tower going.
Yeah, and really not the most important push either. You would really just reset the glyph for your opponents, and I think that's where, especially on Thunder Awaken, Bakaz is showing a little bit too much here. I think as soon as you see one of the cores on Thunder Awaken just randomly show up in a lane, it's very easy for Hokori to say, okay, let's fight, it's time to go. And that's where we are getting to this breaking point with Yuma especially. Hey, Silverage is done. He is ready to go. Once he gets this BKB, suddenly your Mars isn't a problem either. That's where I think Hokori have kind of gotten to the point where they're no longer really terrified of Thunder Awaken just 5-man running at you. And especially on their side, I'm very surprised we're not seeing Sacred queue up maybe a BKB just so that way he's not constantly forced to use the Aphotic Shield on himself. And I think Thunder Awaken are almost wasting some of their time here. I think their window where they would have been very strong is kind of passed. And okay, free kill on Theolacor behind the tier 2 isn't really going to change all that much. But until we see them back on these objectives, there's really no reason for Hokori to care what they're doing.
Yeah. And to the point you made for the ABBA for Sacred, I mean, now it's a little bit compounded, right? First, that Crimson Guard, which is useful but maybe questionable. Now the Solar Crest coming out for him. These are sort of marginal shifts in terms of your ability to sort of affect these fights compared to something like a BKB that's maybe a bit more concrete, a bit more definitive in terms of the advantages that it gives you. So it's a little bit interesting. This is part of the danger, right, of trying to run Abaddon as a core hero. What do you build for him that really sort of helps you the most? But, well, still plenty of time for Sacred to prove his worth with some of these items, but they need something big now to shift momentum because they've started falling behind. 4K down as they'll smoke up. And a nice play onto Analog would be fantastic. As Dark Mago's, he's still going to go for it. He gets the spear down. They actually lock in Vitali. The rest of the lineup, though, they've got to close the gap with that roar onto Bakaz. It's not going to be a long stun, but it is still a stun that gets Vitali away. Theolacor, unfortunately, just sort of wanders in and will be the target for Bakaz to just sort of take out his anger on. But well, that was, what, 4 or 5-man smoke? You get a kill onto the Weaver, and as of right now, not much else. They are still looking for a push mid, so maybe a play like this can even things out, but they were certainly hoping for more value out of that play.
Yeah, and the push is certainly slowed up. It's at 12 armor. It's kind of ridiculous that Dream Protector does that now, and he actually has to use the Phantasm just to make this push feel a little bit faster, but watch the break.
It's the break. Shield, though. Nice play to just sort of mitigate that a little bit. It doesn't remove the break, but it does take away some of the damage. Dark Mago, he whiffs! That's a little bit awkward. Now who do they go for? They're going to try and target Cause first. They get him with the break once again. But look at Sacred just stepping in, trying to body block even the shards coming out here, but the overgrowth is still going to be applied. They got the X down, pulling that CK back into the fight. Because can't toggle the armlet. He will fall. Panda dead as well. Sacred now going to get picked off, and this is starting to look like disaster territory. Dark Mago's at least going to be able to fall back, but they really just can't get anything. And once Dark Mago commits, you blink in, you just go for that play. Everyone has to sort of try and back him up, and now he's going to go for it again, and he's still not going to be able to get anything. There's just not enough damage with the Blink BKB build.
No, definitely not. And I think that's where, well, we got a big problem coming down our mid lane right now. Yuma is level 22. He got everything from that. And the focus from Yuma as well, just continuously focusing on the CK. He hit him with, I think, 2 or 3 breaks in that fight. And, well, here's the Tiny. This is full momentum here. And I think you're just straight up racks if you're Thunder Awaken. There's nothing you can do about the mid racks. And at the very least, Hokori haven't been able to swing those side objectives just yet. So it can only be 1 racks, but man, oh man, momentum has completely shifted, and I almost feel like Thunder Awaken need to swing back for some more items, BKBs, ACs, anything, but that's where Hokori already have their items done. They have so much luxury in everything they've built up. Garda just finished off a Blink Dagger, of all things. Everybody really has what they need to do at this point. And of course, if this is really going to be what Roche Spawn is going to be, 30 seconds is going to heavily favor Hokori here. Hopefully this goes to a 2 or 3 minute timer for Thunder Awaken. Otherwise, I don't think they have enough time to build any more items. And then when it becomes around that next Roche fight that is going to happen, Hokori might just sweep the floor with them. Because looking back at the Tiny as well, he's halfway to a Satanic. Then what do you do?
Yeah, taking him down is really just one step away from impossible, but, you know, this is kind of a good point. We've been, frankly, criticizing, questioning, let's say, put it more politely, some of the item builds from the likes of Sacred and Dark Mago. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, Vitali, able to pick up some big auras with the Vlad into the Wraith Pack, got his Solar Crest earlier. Analog, meanwhile, went in for that AC, so they are so much more equipped for these fights, whereas Thunder Awaken's lineup really doesn't seem to have that much synergy. They're not buffing each other up. It's just 5 dudes with their own damage and spells. And maybe that's enough to pull them back in if they get the right execution. It's just, outside of Pakaz, who's really going to find any kills for this Thunder Awaken lineup?
No, and hey, it's the worst possible timer you could ask for Thunder Awaken, so there's absolutely no way they get into the pit here. They would need the Harpy to come in. They're even voting just to be safe. But this is just a massive problem for them. Now Yuma's assuredly going to have a Satanic for the next fight, and I'm looking at the build-ups on the rest of Thunder Awaken's squad. It's unfortunately just Pakaz here, and okay, again, free kill onto the bug. Nobody's really set up to help him out, but no one else is getting caught out. Nobody on Hokori, except for maybe Gardic, has really died in the last 10 minutes here. I just feel like they're not getting their openings that they need to be finding on Thunder Awaken, and, well, that's a kill. Ooh, okay. Nice trigger from Sacred. That was close.
It manually. Buyback, though, coming in from Theolacor. The Tidal Wave now comes out, pushing Dark Mago back inside of his own arena. They are trying to fight this for Pakaz. He actually just had to use the ult and the Manta to get away from that lockdown, and he's still not making it out. They'll apply the break once again. Sacred doing everything he can to heal his teammate up, but the Tidal Wave comes in again. Pakaz gets pulled back in. He falls. Sacred's dead as well. And Hokori, they are just absolutely handling this Thunder Awaken lineup every time there's a fight. I mean, they don't really seem all that bothered. They lost Vitali, so there is going to be a casualty this time around, but that's the really only casualty that they suffer, and it really doesn't prevent them from making a play like this. Once they take the fight, they take the tower. Would not be surprised to see them now threaten the high ground again.
Yeah, and I honestly don't know what Thunder Awaken can do at this stage of the game. I don't think there is anything they can do to Yuma. He's just taken it. I think this might just be an early GG coming out from them. Of course, Hokori, they need to take a lot of these objectives still, and I think that goes to show what the game state was not even, 10 minutes ago, where they suddenly weren't able to approach any tower for the longest period of time, but there's really nothing to stop them at this point. And we saw in the fight, Pakaz is just having to run continuously from the Tiny. He can't survive the avalanche. He can't survive the tree throw for all that matters. And that's also where Analog is just being the perfect supporting man for him. He's just giving so much armor, so much buff, and that tidal wave is brutal. And without BKBs on your core, everything is getting disarmed. There's really not much hope for Thunder Awaken in this game. I think it really, if there was going to be a shot in the dark for them, they'd need to somehow split the map so hard, get another, I want to say 10,000 net worth on their heroes, and then maybe I could see them posting a comeback here, but this is grim stuff. Yuma's about to translate all the towers, just finishes Satanic, is about to slot out his Echo Saber, maybe for a Hyperstone or a Moonshard, or even just go back for the Blink Dagger, because why not? He's really under absolutely no pressure.
Yeah, and I think this has been a fantastic game from Yuma, but I am so impressed by Analog's performance on this Kunkka. It's, again, the first time he's played it in this event, and, well, hold on, we'll get to that in a moment as Vitali is going to get jumped in on. Dark Mago makes the move, but again, where is the damage right now? Vitali survives, Ghost Ship even flying through to help him out. Tidal Wave now going to force Thunder Awaken out of position. They are going all in for this kill, but even if they get it, it doesn't change the overall state of this fight. Dark Mago is now going to run out of time on his BKB. He's got to fall back. Thunder Awaken are at least able to help him retreat, but look at Gardic. Cue up the Jaws theme. He is looking for his moment. He's got the blink and the overgrowth. Just needs the opening. Although at this point, they may not need an opening. Sacred is dropping him because he's going down as well. And yeah, there's going to be the overgrowth coming out now just to secure it, but they didn't need it. And that's a GG call. Thunder Awaken have had enough. Hokori continue to have their number as they take game one.
Yeah, and I think this is where this series is underway, and that's where if Hokori 2 with Thunder Awaken again, that would be insane, I'll be honest. Just because I guess Hokori are seeming to be the Thunder Awaken kryptonite, but as you said, fantastic game from Analog. Really showed why Kunkka is a very, very obnoxious hero, but I think that is also where Thunder Awaken, they took out the Timbersaw early on. As soon as one team spends a ban on that hero, it really becomes a question of how many tanky heroes can you get involved? How many 5 positions can you have that really make it difficult to find these kills? And I think that's where, yet again, it becomes a question about armor. It becomes a question of how tanky you really are. And I think that's where Thunder Awaken, they put a timer on so many heroes and so many of their spells. The tag team is limited damage. The Mars is limited damage. Sacred is trying to do his best, but as soon as you're playing at a deficit, you play from behind. Abaddon offlane does not look good from behind, and because he's really trying to play his heart out, but that's where if you are only having one source of damage, you're just not going to win. And that's where Hokori soundly beat Thunder Awaken there. They had so much damage coming out from so many different sources. They were able to play up with each other constantly. And I think that's also where this Train Protector, it made the game feel miserable for Thunder Awaken. That armor is just brutal to play versus.
Yeah, with that maxed out build on the Living Armor, they just really couldn't get, I'd say probably half of the plays that they were trying to make both onto heroes and towers. It just really shut them down. Meanwhile, here I was in the draft, you know, throwing out some stats about Kunkka. You know, Hokori haven't really played all that well with Kunkka. Analog says, shut the hell up, KMart. What do you know? 5-0-10 performance on this Kunkka. So, well, it wasn't the hero. It was maybe just who they were putting it on. With Analog on that Kunkka, he was able to contribute both durability, utility, damage, everything that they needed to really just enable that Tiny that much more.
Yeah, and I mean, hey, really playing second fiddle to Analog, this is the most comfortable I think that Hokori have felt in their duo core. We've seen them experiment before. We've seen them kind of be forced to split the map in. Hey, Vitali had a not so good of a game on this Beastmaster,
That's
but
true.
he played that supporting role. He didn't even have boars, I want to say, till like level 10. Just built a solar crest, just throwing out axes, just being the friend. But in doing so, he let Analog spread his wings. He let really his other 2 cores shine. And I think that's where coming into game 2, Thunder Awaken need to try something drastically different. And they have the hero pool depth to do so. But that's also where I think Hokori, if they can replicate exactly what they did in this game, they're looking pretty fine.
Yeah, they were looking very good. And to think, you know, on the final day of the group stage, we were wondering if this team was even going to make it into upper bracket. Now, they're 1 win away from knocking the odds-on favorite in Thunder Awaken into that lower bracket. So, Warrior absolutely on fire here, at least in matchups against this particular opponent. But we'll see now what adjustments Thunder Awaken can make, because, I mean, we haven't really seen to this point how they respond in the aftermath of a loss, because no other team has been able to actually beat them back in that group stage run. So this is where things are really going to be interesting. This is where Thunder Awaken will try to prove that they really are deserving of that favorite status if they can bounce back and push this to a full 3 games. Otherwise, Hokori going to get themselves into that upper bracket final. So we will be moving on here momentarily, getting ready for that game to draft and see if Hokori can once again slay Goliath, or if it is going to be Thunder Awaken fighting their way back into it.
Yeah, couldn't say it better myself. Let's go.
Yep, I think, yeah, we're holding everything up here, so we're gonna hop out. We'll be back in about 5 to 10 with the start of game 2. Stick around.